a.m., 8 p.m. on a Wednesday night in Nashville, Tennessee. Got myself all twisted up here. Lucas Panzica alongside Will Bowling. Jackson Williams is our producer. This is NSC Backstage. Hear us each and every Wednesday evening during the MLS regular season. Will Bowling, are your brains as scrambled as mine? I have no excuse sitting next to a guy that goes 6 to 10 a.m. on 104.5 The Zone as opposed to 10 to 1. But good evening.
What's going on? No, I was very, very close last week to saying a very good morning to you when we started the show. And I genuinely caught myself on the M of morning and the very end of it. So I did not blame you at all, considering we both go to work in this building starting in the AM. So that's okay.
You a little bit earlier than me. But this is NSC Backstage. And speaking of catching themselves, Nashville SC certainly did so, preventing themselves from sliding into a multi-game stretch of losses, following up the 5-0 loss at LAFC over 2 weeks ago, the worst loss in club history, with a bounce-back draw against Columbus Crew on Saturday at Geodis Park. This was a very entertaining game, as anticipated. Nashville scoring 2 goals in stoppage time of the first half to carry a 2-1 lead into the break. Columbus equalizing in the 79th minute. Minestro Hinestroza with a header in the box to make it 2-2. That was the final. Both teams take a point. Fun game, Will. Nashville, as we said, needed a bounce-back performance in this game. It feels like they got it, just without the ultimate result of a home win.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think talking with Gary Smith before the game, he told us when you lose 5-0 and you lose in the manner we did against LAFC, you need a good performance and you need a good effort coming off the heels of that. Whenever you play the MLS Cup champions in Columbus Crew, who are off to one of the best starts ever by a defending champion in MLS play, they're playing Tigres last night on FS1. They're continuing on in CONCACAF Champions Cup against the best teams in the continent. A draw is a good result. However way you put it, getting a point against that team wherever you are playing the game is a positive thing. I think beyond that, though, the bigger positive was the performance. Nashville has, again, another game with 2 goals. Last year, it took them around this same time to get to 3 games with 2 goals. April 1st against Orlando City last season in 2023. But I think you like a lot of the things that are happening up front right now, and you like Hani Mukhtar getting on the score sheet. He ends an 11-game goalless run in MLS play. That's the longest that he has had since his first season in Major League Soccer and Nashville's first season in Major League Soccer in 2020. I think you trust that with Gary Smith, with Nashville SC, the defensive side of things is going to get there. And when you're missing perhaps your 3 best defenders on the night, in Walker Zimmerman, your designated player captain, in Shaq Moore, the U.S. international, and in Lucas McNaughton, who has been a revelation for the last year since he joined from Toronto, there are going to be drop-offs. Unfortunate that this drop-off happened after Nashville was leading 2-1 at halftime, but overall, I think a good night for the boys in gold.
We've got a good night planned for you here on NSC Backstage. Coming up in the next segment, Anibal Godoy, the man of the match on Saturday with an absolute wonder goal, the bicycle kick that made it 2-1 in favor of the boys in gold late in the first half. He'll join us. He'll talk about the meaning of that goal to him, the celebration that followed, and a little more about how the season has gone for the Panamanian International. We'll look ahead to the MLS action this weekend, including previewing Nashville's next home fixture Saturday night at Geodis Park against Philadelphia Union. But for now, let's hear from Gary Smith following the 2-2 draw against Columbus Crew last Saturday night.
Yeah, wonderful to get Hani on the score sheet and an outstanding goal from Anibal. I think most importantly, response after the difficulties last week was paramount. And I thought there were some really good stages in the game. I don't think we started particularly well, and maybe a little bit of fallout from last week, but we got stronger. And there were certainly opportunities in that second period where, with a little bit more edge in front of goal, we may have extended our lead and found ourselves with 3 instead of 1. But at the moment, with so many changes occurring, we managed to get ourselves a point on the board, and I think the frustration will be about not winning it.
That does feel like the next step right, Will, as we hear from Gary Smith on Saturday about shoring up those defensive lapses that we've just come to really take for granted, right, under a Gary Smith side with Nashville, and turning 1 point into 3, especially when the boys in gold establish a home lead.
Yeah, certainly. Nashville last season scored 2+ goals 13 times in MLS play. They were 13-0-0 in those games. This season, they have 1 win while scoring 2 goals. That was against Charlotte a couple of weeks ago. And now they have 2 draws. They have a couple of 2-2 draws on the schedule, one against Columbus over the weekend and another against LA Galaxy a few weeks ago. And Nashville has conceded 3 goals in the last 15 minutes of the second half. Only Montreal and San Jose have conceded more in MLS this season. Nashville is close. They are close, I think, to getting to that point where you are sharp enough in those final 15 minutes, in those final 20 minutes, to get over the hump and get 3 points in these kinds of games. And I think that is where you start to pinpoint problems and worrying signs for Gary Smith are those final 15 minutes. A Dejan Joveljic goal for LA Galaxy brings them a point in Nashville against the boys in gold. You have, obviously, CONCACAF Champions Cup, the 2-2 draw to Inter Miami. That's outside of MLS play. That's a third 2-2 draw that this team has had this season, albeit with some tricky, that's the kind way of putting it, refereeing decisions on the night. But you put yourself another goal behind than away goals in CONCACAF Champions Cup on that night against Miami with a late goal for Luis Suarez. And then over the weekend, another one as well for Columbus late in the game. So I think at this point, Lucas, when you start to look at getting over the hump, I think it starts in the last 15 minutes of the game.
It's hard not to talk about injuries and it not sound like excuse making, right? But there's also no way to tell the story of this team's 2024 campaign without how injuries have plagued them along the way, especially with the defensive conversation that we're talking about. And it feels like it's come in waves this season, right? First, Walker Zimmerman and Dan Lovitz are out for the early onset when Nashville's beginning CONCACAF Champions Cup play down at Mocha in the Dominican. And then in that game, Hani Mukhtar and Sam Surridge get injured. Walker Zimmerman and Dan Lovitz return, and then Walker gets hurt again when Hani is back for the first time in that first leg against Inter Miami. Sam Surridge makes his return, and then Lucas McNaughton falls out of the group. Now Shaq Moore suffers an injury late in training last week. Tyler Boyd held out more for precautionary reasons, but still was not with the team on Saturday. And all of this, Will, with Randall Leal having been out of the equation since the preseason. So it's to the point where it's affecting game plans. Mm-hmm. And Gary Smith said after the game on Saturday that, just as an example, Alex Moyle had planned to play in the midfield against Columbus. And then at the drop of a hat, he has to drop into that right wing-back role with Shaq's injury. So as the boys in gold kind of continue to wade through this and await the return of Zimmerman and McNaughton, could we see more of that 3-5-2 shape that we saw them deploy on Saturday?
I think absolutely. I think personnel-wise, it makes a lot of sense. Gary Smith, in his pregame conversation with you on our broadcast over the weekend, said as well that he was interested to see the 3-at-the-back formation and see if it's something that we could see a lot more of moving forward. And because of that, you have versatile pieces, especially at wingbacks, that can do a couple of different things really well. Alex Moyle has played every position imaginable as a Nashville player. One of these days, he's going to take our job and find a way to broadcast and play at the same time. Like, he is genuinely one of the most valuable pieces of this Nashville team because of how many different positions he can play. He's a right back in a back 4. He's a right wing back in a back 3. He's a central midfield player. He's played as a number 10 against Mocha FC. But really, in reality, he is an out-and-out right midfield player or right winger. So I think you have him on the right side and Jacob Schaffelberg, who has played left back for Toronto FC before he came over to Nashville. He's played left wing back for the Canadian national team, where he scored against Trinidad a week and a half ago. Gary Smith employed him as a left wing back over the weekend. I think those two players specifically and their ability to do a job for you in their secondary positions allow you to get attacking talent, but also keep your backbone as well. And it's going to take some time, right, for this shape to kind of become the norm for Nashville. And I think that's why you saw some of those mental errors and just lapses in defensive coverage over the weekend. it's going to take a couple of weeks. I mean, Gary Smith said it after the game. I don't think Alex Muyl was preparing all week to play right wing back. All of a sudden, things happen. One thing leads to another. The plan changes. You become the right wing back. I think that will also help Nashville hold on to a lead and defend its own half and its own 18-yard box in the final 15 minutes as well.
We are also live on 104.5 The Zone TV, where you can interact, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch. Taylor in the F&M Bank chat asks, what is the latest health report on guys that are out, like those three defensive players? Gary Smith will meet with the media tomorrow. I imagine he'll be asked about this, and maybe we hear more on the status of Lucas McNaughton and on Shaq Moore. I will say, though, with Walker Zimmerman, Gary Smith gave us a couple of weeks ago a timeline of 3 to 4 weeks with Zimmerman being injured. We're kind of on track to where Philadelphia on Saturday, would kind of be at or near the end of that mark. So I don't think Walker would be out of the question against Philly, but obviously, the next couple of days will probably be pretty big in that regard.
Yeah, Gary Smith spoke to us over the weekend about that and mentioned specifically Walker and Lucas as the player where they're going to aim for them to play this weekend. They're going to go through their paces. They're going to be on the field in the build-up to the game this weekend and see what they can do and if they will be available. Same goes for Tyler Boyd as well, who was on the field last week, was training with the team, is hoping to do more field work this week, the way we understand it, and put himself in contention for selection over the weekend as well. So potentially some reinforcements coming back very soon for Nashville.
You're talking about those wingbacks and the way that different players have had to move around, some at the last minute. Jacob Schaffelberg, one of those, kicks out to that left wingback role for the first time for Nashville. He's done it for the Canadian national team. Provides 2 assists, right? 2 crosses swung in for Hani Mukhtar for Anibal Godoy from the goal line on that left side. Your thoughts, Will Bowling, on Jacob Schaffelberg's Nashville SC debut as a wingback?
He led the team with 6 crosses. I thought he was excellent in picking his moments to get forward. And I think Jacob has cover behind him and Dan Lovitz, who's playing as the left-sided center back behind him at the moment. He doesn't have to do a lot of one-on-one defending in a back three. And Nashville can shift a bit towards the right, and with the ball or without it, however Gary Smith decides to play on a given night, in different phases of the game, they can build out as a back four. And Alex Muyl can come in as a right back. You have Dan Lovitz come in at left back, and you have 2 out-and-out center backs, and whoever's picked in the middle there as well. So I love the versatility it gives Nashville. Schaffelberg had 2 assists in a match for just the second time in his career. You got to go back to September 29th with Toronto. So the first time he's had 2 assists in a game as a Nashville player. I think the sky's the limit for this guy. I really, really think that he has done so much work in his final product and what he does in the final third. And he's gone to the Steve Guppy School of Wingers, Nashville's excellent assistant coach, who is so good at teaching those guys 1-2 step overs, cross, step over, pivot left, like the different things that they work on. We've seen it on the pitch at training. You wouldn't believe. So I really, really think left wing back, at least for the foreseeable future, is going to be where we'll continue to see Jacob Schaffelberg.
Has to be one of the most consistent performers for this team so far this season, right?
I think he absolutely is. I think he is, alongside Joe Willis, bar, one red card. Yeah. That's a bit of a difficult situation. I think Joe and Jacob, for me, have been the standout performers of the young season. No question.
How important to get Hani Mukhtar off the mark on Saturday? First goal of the MLS campaign.
It's huge. It really is. And I think, too, the 5 shot attempts for me are equally as valuable as him scoring. We're going to talk with Anibal Godoy about this coming up in a few minutes, but there is a challenge in getting your first goal. The most challenging part, talking to Jalil Anibaba about this, MLS Season Pass Apple TV broadcaster, and of course, good friend of the show and friend of ours here on The Zone. The first everything in MLS is most difficult. First game, first start, first cross, first goal, first assist. And these things tend to come in bunches. I'm backing Hani Mukhtar to put a second one in the net this weekend. The 5 shots for him, he'd been averaging just under 2 shots per game so far this season. He nearly triples that mark over the weekend, which I think is a really good sign.
It's rare that Hani Mukhtar can get on the score sheet and still be one-upped by a teammate as far as just how impressive the goal was. That was certainly the case for Anibal Godoy, who scored what is ultimately going to be a candidate, Will, for goal of the season in Major League Soccer. It was a shoo-in for goal of the match day on Saturday. But Nashville midfielder Anibal Godoy joins us on NSC Backstage to talk about that performance against Columbus, that goal, the celebration, and much more right here next on 104.5 The Zone. Stage on 104.5 The Zone. Lucas Panzica, Will Bowling with you here on this Wednesday night, and we are thrilled to be joined by the man of the hour, the man of the match on Saturday in the 2-2 draw against Columbus Crew, Anibal Godoy, a stunner of a bicycle kick late in stoppage time in the first half, and he joins us here on Backstage. Anibal, how are you? Thanks for being here.
Oh, good evening. Thank you for that invitation for me. I am happy to have conversation with yours.
No, we're happy to have you, Anibal. We have to start with the goal. Just an absolute stunner. You had the entire crowd in this sort of ecstatic shock when it happened. Take us through it when Jacob Schaffelberg has that back cross at the goal line and the ball's falling to you. What's going through your mind and that decision to go for the bike and then the celebration afterwards?
Yeah, I think when Schaffel take the ball, my first thing is try to go to the box, because normally I don't be too much in the box, but in the shape we played last week, I have a little bit more freedom to try to go into the box, This is why I always thinking like when our fullback have the ball, my first option is to go to the box, and this is why when I see like Shaf at the ball, and I always speak with Shaf, like try to when he have the ball, sometimes he tried to put really good cross in front to the defender, and I always say like Shaf, try one time to try to play cutback, and I think he doing that one, and my only option I have in that one is to try to finish, because if I take touch inside the box, for sure, the defenders coming to press me, and I think my first thing in my mind is like try to do that volley. I don't know, try to hit the ball and try to hit the target. I think I don't expect, that goal in that moment, but I think it's really good goal.
I have to ask you about this. I know you were asked about it post-game by Valer Shabila in the post-game press conference. Your former Panamanian teammate, Luis Tejada, who tragically passed away in January, all-time leading goal scorer for the Panamanian national team. He was known for his bicycle kick and the way that he could finish in that way. And now here you are in late March scoring a goal that I'm sure Luis would have been proud of. Just how cool of a moment was that for you? What did Luis mean to you as a teammate? And do you think he would have approved of that finish in the box?
Yeah, for sure. I think he is the only guy in Panama we have. He can make that goal. He have that quality. It's natural for him, and he scored like 3 goals like this in the career. And in my mind, I want to celebrate with him, but I don't score so many goals in my career, and one like this, and I want to run into my family, to my kids, because I always before the game I always say to them, to both, I have two beautiful kids, and I say to them like, hey, maybe I scored today, but to try to give confidence to them. But I know in my position is sometimes difficult to score, but this is why I think Tejada feel proud for that goal, because this is the only guy we have in Panama to do that one.
Nashville midfielder Anibal Godoy, our guest here tonight on 104.5 The Zone. Anibal, confidence for the team was also so critical this weekend against a tough opponent like Columbus. What did you like about the team's performance as a whole and the way you guys were able to bounce back at home?
Yeah, I think the confidence before the game also is good. We know we don't have really good result last week, but the reaction for this group after we concede the first goal against Columbus is really well, and also in the beginning, in that shake, I think the group feel confidence, comfort, and this is why we have to improve this week to try to see what we're doing well, what we don't doing well, and to try to reinforce for other challenge this weekend.
You've been a part of this team since day one. You've been in this league for a long time, and you know how unique it is for a roster to stay together the way this one has, and just how tight-knit you guys are as a group. How close are you guys as a team, and just how much confidence do you have that Nashville's best soccer is ahead of it this season?
Yeah, I think we have a really, really good group. I say to my teammate, for me, is one of the best group I've been ever in my career. We have really good guys in the locker room. I think this is the more important if you want to create or if you want to win something like a group, because football is like the group, because it's not like other sport like tennis or boxing. You play one against one individual. You need help from your teammate. And we create really good group, and we try to do something every single month, like like something fun, like a group. And I think we create so many good vibes around the group to try to fighting for something in this season.
Do you think, Anibal, that in turn makes that chemistry on the field much easier to establish when a newcomer steps into the fold, when you're so established with the core of your team at every level, and then Drew Yearwood steps into the midfield. Tyler Boyd is injected into the attack. Do you think that makes it that much easier for you to bring in a new personality and fit it in seamlessly?
Of course, of course. When you have a player like Drew, like Tyler, they have different quality. You know, they play in different positions, and they try to reinforce. You know, like try to create different quality in the team, and because we have really good player in our team already. But when you bring that player, they try to give something different, you know, in the field. And I think for us it's more easy, you know, of course, because you have that quality player. For sure, you fighting for something. If you want to take player like this, you have to be always in the top 7 position.
One of those players, and Hani Mukhtar, scores the goal that equalizes on Saturday before your goal before halftime made it 2-1. How good was it for you to be sharing the field and celebrating with Hani when he gets on the score sheet for the first time in MLS play in 2024? And just how important do you think that was for his confidence moving forward?
Yeah, I think it's really good. It's very important for him and for the team also, because we know Hani in that moment he have too much pressure because he don't score in this year. And I think the more difficult for every single forward is the first goal. After you score the first goal, every single goal is coming more easy. You know, in the next week. This is why I think Hani start the season now. We know he don't have a good start because he have a injury also. He come from injury. You know, it's difficult to try to start well, you know, when you have like injury in preseason. But the football is like this. Now Hani scored the first goal. We know for sure this is the first one for so many goals he scored this year. And you know, always Hani is great for us. When you have like one player like Hani like this, like he can make the difference in 5 seconds. We have to protect him, you know, a lot.
Anibal, final question for me. How much do you like playing in Nashville, and how cool has it been over the course of your career as a Nashville player to watch this sport and watch this club grow so much here in this city?
Yeah, I love Nashville. You know, it's amazing city, and also if you see last Saturday, the stadium is full. Normally in other country in South America, if you lose 5-0 away, you come back home to play next week. For sure, you don't have so many people, you know, to support because you come from one really bad lose, you know. But if you see the people follow us a lot, they put too much pressure. I think it's one of the best stadium to play in MLS for sure. It's not because I play in Nashville; it's because I play in so many stadiums here in MLS. It's not the same you know vibes you feel in Geodis Park, you know. And I feel happy. I don't know if for me I want to retire here in Nashville, but it's not my decision, you know. But in that moment I want to enjoy every single day here in Nashville and every single moment, and to try to win something. I want to win trophy. I say in the beginning of the season, I want to win trophy from that city, for that club, because I think for me this is really special club.
And Anibal, our radio partner, he was our radio partner last year. We do a lot of work with him still, of course, is your former teammate, Jalil Anibaba. And anytime he references you on a broadcast, he uses the word warrior. Every time, it just keeps coming back. The Panamanian warrior, Anibal Godoy. And I think Nashville fans have come to appreciate that presence that you have on the field, especially in a game like Inter Miami when there's superstars that you're going up against. And it's consistently you, the one that's setting that tone. How would you describe just your mindset when you step onto a field for Nashville?
Yeah, this is why all my teammates say, like, you have two personality, you know, like outside to the field, you are like good guy, amazing guy. You take care of everyone. Like, this is why I like to do, you know. I have to be like every single person, be comfort, you know, around me. I like to help other people, my teammates, the young guys, and also the older guy. I always want to be fun, something in the locker room. But when I go to the inside to the field, I am different player. If you are for my country, for example, if you play against Carrasquilla in Houston, and I protect my team. He protect your team, I protect my team. I have to do everything for my team, and my personality change. I am every different people when I go to the field. I try to help my team. Help the team, all my teammates also, and this is why I feel. I try to give. This is my job. My job is to try to be like warrior, because in my position, you have to running a lot. You have to fighting a lot. And also play with the ball in both sides. I try to do my best for my teammate and also for my team.
Philadelphia Union coming up on Saturday at Geodis Park. Another big opportunity for you before you get a week off and then jump back out on the road to visit Miami once again. What can you tell us early on about Philadelphia Union, how familiar of an opponent they are, and the job that you will be tasked with in midfield when it comes to facing that side?
Yeah, it's really tough team to play. They play different shape. They know how they play every single game. They have clear what they have to do in every single situation, and we have to be aware in that one to try to block the best player they have, and to try to do the best effort in the field and win. This is what we need. We need win. If we don't play good, or we play good, we have to take 3 points, because in the end, when you have 3 points, your confidence go a little bit more up for the next step. The next step for us is Philly, and after we have really good, really difficult game against Miami. If we want to win something in this season, we start to take a 3 point this week.
So, Anibal, we've talked about how your goal over the weekend might be the best goal in Nashville SC history. Maybe aside from yours over the weekend, do you have a favorite that you've seen a teammate score? Heck, even your late one against Seattle was pretty meaningful a couple of years ago as well. Do you have a favorite in Nashville SC history?
Oh, like what I say in the beginning, I watched so many goals from Nashville. Oh, I like it. I think I like it Taylor Bolly.
Yeah.
Like outside to the box, because it's difficult to do that one. It's one touch outside to the box. With pressure, I think this is one of my favorite goal in this moment.
I like it.
Yeah, Washington. Yeah, that's a great answer. Anibal Godoy, thank you so much. Congrats on the performance on Saturday and the goal, and best of luck this weekend against Philadelphia. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Have a good evening.
Well, we had this discussion on Spotlight on Apple TV on the best goal in Nashville SC history. By the way, Spotlight hits the Nashville team homepage on Apple TV each and every Wednesday afternoon. Catch the two of us, Jalil Anibaba, Liv Ngurian, breaking down everything going on with Nashville Soccer Club the week prior and the upcoming matches. So everybody had their submission. You're sticking with Anibal on Saturday.
100%. I'm 100% sticking with Anibal. The challenge of an overhead kick and the first bicycle kick goal in Nashville SC history simply must be commended. I mean, the skill of doing that. You can see goals from long distance, curlers from outside the box. I mean, there are difficult headers in the mix there as well. In terms of most meaningful goals, we have maybe a different discussion. I think in terms of technical difficulty and the skill that it takes to score an overhead kick, this is number one for me.
I think I have to agree. It is one of the most unique goals in Nashville SC history. It's one of those that's just going to stay with you. So I think I'm with you. What comes to mind for me is Sean Davis against Portland.
Great one.
In July 2022, just an absolute curler. And it's always great when it comes from someone you don't necessarily expect it from as well. Dax McCarty's rocket on a volley against New England Revolution comes to mind from last October. And we can go through these. Any Hani Mukhtar free kick goal in his Nashville SC career. But, yeah, I think Anibal, Anibal has to top the list.
So my other one is 100% Randall Leal from another zip code in the first round against Inter Miami before they became this Inter Miami that is playing right now against Monterrey in CONCACAF Champions Cup. 2020 first round of the playoffs, Nashville's first ever goal in a playoff game, scored from genuinely 30 to 35 yards away by the Costa Rican Randall Leal. I mean, that he put that one in from the banks of the Cumberland.
Yeah, a Messi-less Miami just conceded against Monterrey on a set piece. Miami also going down to 10 men in this first leg of the CONCACAF Champions Cup quarterfinal. 1-1 the score, 71st minute. Fun game brewing on South Beach at the moment in this first leg on FS1.
Isn't this great that, too, like, we can update the score of a soccer game live on the air? Like, we both enjoy our jobs during the day, obviously, from 6 to 10 and for you 10 to 1 on the air. But this is sometimes what I feel like we actually want to talk about. I won't speak for you. Maybe I should watch what I say carefully and if our bosses are listening. But, like, this is fun to me that we are updating live a score of a soccer game on the zone. I don't take that for granted, Lucas.
I could not agree more with Jordi Alba and Sergio Busquets and Messi looking on from a hamstring injury has him inactive at the moment. Fun game here in Miami. Again, Monterrey just scoring, so we'll see how this shapes up in the final 20 minutes plus stoppage time, a VAR review at the moment. Miami, of course, the team that eliminated Nashville from CONCACAF Champions Cup. But Anibal Godoy, his impact on Saturday, outside of the goal, of course. I know you brought him up on last week's edition of Spotlight. He's a guy that was not with the team when they went to LAFC a week ago. It was with the Panamanian national team. And just kind of the calmness, the presence that he brings to that Nashville midfield. His impact on Saturday to you outside of an obvious wonder goal.
He's the leader of the midfield. I think for me, Nashville is still finding its exact midfield combination in 2024. We've seen a lot of different partnerships. We've seen a lot of a midfield three with Anibal Godoy, with Sean Davis, and with Drew Yearwood, which we saw over the weekend. We've seen Drew Yearwood and Brian Anunga, those two together with Alex Muil. We've seen just Yearwood and Anunga. We've seen Yearwood and Davis. We've seen a lot of different options in midfield. But in Nashville SC's existence now, Anibal Godoy in the center of the pitch, Lucas, is the elder statesman. I mean, there is no more Dax McCarty who is down in Atlanta. And I think that anytime you replace your midfield maestro in Dax, there is going to be an acclimation period. I think that is totally normal. I don't think that's something that should worry Nashville fans. I certainly don't think it worries Gary Smith, Mike Jacobs, and Nashville SC. I think this is what was expected whenever you move on from a player of Dax McCarty's experience. This is what happens. You have to rely on your leaders that are left a bit more week in and week out. Anibal Godoy is that guy. I mean, what he's been able to do for his country, for Panama. Gary Smith told us last week off of the 5-0 loss to LAFC, I need my best players to be in their best form. Anibal Godoy is one of Nashville SC's best players. He has been excellent to start the season, whether it's cameos off the bench against LA Galaxy from the start over the weekend. His first goal since match day 1 in 2022, a late winner on that night against Seattle Sounders. Gary Smith asked a lot of his leaders, and Anibal Godoy delivered.
No midfielder for this club has appeared in more games in a Nashville shirt than Anibal Godoy. Saturday was his 92nd appearance in gold. It was his 193rd career MLS regular season appearance. Only Sean Davis has more in that regard in the span of his career, 242 games played in this league, of course, going back to his time at New York Red Bulls. So those players will continue to be important for Nashville, who returns home on Saturday to host yet another team that has recently participated in an MLS Cup final. In fact, the three participants of the last two MLS Cup finals, LAFC obviously playing in back-to-back finals, winning one and falling last year to Columbus Crew, Columbus being that second team, and Philadelphia Union make up a three-game stretch for Nashville here in these last couple of weeks, culminating with a game against Philadelphia at home on Saturday night, a 7:30 kickoff at Geodis Park. We'll look ahead to the problems that Philadelphia Union poses for Nashville, where both teams stand in the Eastern Conference today, as well as the best matchups in Major League Soccer coming up in match day 8. This is NSC Backstage on 104.5 The Zone. Match day 8 in Major League Soccer kicks off this weekend. Nashville Soccer Club back home Saturday to host Philadelphia Union at Geodis Park. 7:30 is the kickoff. We will be on the air at 7 p.m., myself and Eddie Carvacho this time around. Looking forward to having Eddie back on.
The best, man.
The NSC broadcast team. You've done a game with Eddie. I've not had the pleasure of working with Eddie yet.
Eddie is awesome. Eddie is a fantastic broadcaster, knows the game as anybody, or as well as anybody in Middle Tennessee, has done quite a bit of Nashville Soccer Club with my brother Wes and with myself, I believe 2 times. A couple of years ago. You will have a blast with him.
A guy who has worked in every corner of a Major League Soccer club, whether it's coaching, marketing, front office, former U.S. national team pool goalkeeper. Very much looking forward to working with Eddie on Saturday. We will be on the 104.5 The Zone app Saturday night. Final Four coverage will be on terrestrial radio. But, of course, if you're watching on Apple TV, you always have the option to tune in and listen to the home radio broadcast as your audio, because Nashville SC currently 11th place in the Eastern Conference. 1 win, 4 draws, and 1 loss will face Philadelphia Union, who sits 7th in the East, unbeaten so far in the season, 2 wins, 3 draws, and no losses. We'll talk about the Union here in a moment, Will, but briefly looking at the top of the Eastern Conference that we knew was going to be a gauntlet coming into this season. Is there anything that's surprised you in the early onset first month or so of the regular season campaign, with Cincinnati at the top of that conference table, Miami just 1 point back? They're tied on points with Columbus and New York Red Bulls, who have been resurgent this season. I don't know that there's a team in better form than LA Galaxy over in the West. They top the Supporter Shield standings, but just sticking to the East, a conference that we already had high expectations for, has anybody kind of come out of nowhere for you at the early onset?
Man, for me, it's Toronto. I think Toronto FC is perhaps the surprise of the league. I think them and Vancouver overall in the West, who has had a similar start, but 10 points for Toronto gets you 5th in the East. 10 points right now would put you in a tie for 2nd in the Western Conference, which tells you a little bit about the way these two conferences are operating in 2024. But Toronto, the 3 wins, a couple of losses. John Herdman in his first season as the head coach there with a lot of moving parts. And you wondered with Toronto how many of the old guard would be welcomed under new leadership. And John Herdman, Canadian national team coach, and a dang good one in that as well, in what his influence would be. You got Lipscomb's own Tyrese Spicer, who becomes the 6th ever number 1 overall pick in the MLS Super Draft to score in his first start, as he did a couple of weeks ago. Lorenzo Insigne with a couple of goals to start the season. Jaquil Marshall-Ruddy is a 19-year-old who is off the mark. He's got a goal and an assist. I am interested to see if they can keep it up, because the Eastern Conference is very, very difficult. There is a lot of travel for that Toronto team, for every team in the East, especially when they go out West as well. But for me, Toronto being in 5th, Montreal and New York Red Bulls, the other 2 teams that maybe weren't expected to be as good as they have been. Montreal's fallen off a bit with a couple of losses in a row on 7 points right off the playoff line and 10th at the moment. But for me right now, Lucas, it's Toronto. What about you?
Toronto is certainly a good shout. They've leveled off a bit. I've lost 2 of their last 3 matches, most recently 3-1 against Sporting Kansas City, really 3-0, a consolation goal there at the end. And Lorenzo Insigne got off to such a fantastic start to the season. He's now nursing a hamstring.
Right.
So that's about 6 weeks they're looking at with him. So we'll see if Toronto kind of comes back down to earth. But no question, early on, they looked like they were living up to the expectations that came with last season, and bringing in, of course, the Italian stars in Bernardeschi and Insigne. They'll be here at Geodis Park before too long, in a little over a month's time. I'm going to say New York Red Bulls, because while Emil Forsberg has been very important to their success, and he has been in such good form, it's Lewis Morgan that's kind of lifted Red Bulls over these last couple of games. 4 goals in his last 2 games, including a hat trick in the 4-0 win over Inter Miami, not this past Saturday, but the match day prior. And New York Red Bulls suddenly have somebody at the very top of the Golden Boot race. I won't say Emil Forsberg is currently in the MVP race. I think there's other catalysts across Major League Soccer that are having better seasons than him, but there's no question he is a driving force, an MVP caliber player for New York Red Bulls. So I'm going to go with Red Bulls. You just never know, first-year head coach, how those things will go. Star comes over from Europe, but no doubt it's been a seamless fit. I will say on the West, I'm so glad you brought up Vancouver.
Oh, my gosh.
Because I feel like we never talk enough about Vancouver. Former boy in gold, Fafa Pico, is scoring goals for Vancouver. And Vanni Sartini is one of the most entertaining managers in all of Major League Soccer. Just a zany, just catch a post-game presser once by Vanni Sartini. I promise you, you will be thoroughly entertained after a Vancouver match. And here they sit, second in the Western Conference, tied on points with Real Salt Lake, Minnesota, and Houston. Very tight-knit at the top of both the East and the West so far.
Yeah, and they beat Portland Timbers 3-2 over the weekend. Portland, a team, a bit of an enigma to start the year as well, starting off with 2 wins out of 3 and then 3 straight losses since then in that Western Conference. It's just so tricky, right? And I think we as Nashville broadcasters and you listening as Nashville SC fans understand just the different challenges of the Eastern Conference versus the Western Conference. I remember talking with Gary Smith about that and just hearing, conversation about how it's almost like the Western Conference was more technically skillful a couple of years ago. It was almost more like playing in Spain, like playing in a place that has more superstar individuals that are just going about things on their own, incredible individual efforts. And then the Eastern Conference is almost more like England, physical, team pressing. Philadelphia from the Red Bull system. Red Bulls, obviously, from the Red Bull system. Orlando, that is going to batter you and slide you down and tackle you and elbow you any chance that they can get. It almost feels like those have maybe even switched a little bit. And I do think the pressure element, and we're going to talk about that with Philadelphia, still remains true in the East. But now you have so many more individuals in the Eastern Conference. Cucho Hernandez, who we didn't see over the weekend. Lionel Messi, obviously. Lewis Morgan and Emil Forsberg, who you mentioned.
Thiago Almada.
You had Luis Muriel in Orlando.
Yeah.
I mean, so many outstanding individuals in this league. It's raised the level of every team we're talking about.
Only 3 unbeaten teams remain in Major League Soccer as we get ready to head into Match Day 8 on Saturday. 2 of those are in the East. One of those will be at Geodis Park on Saturday as Philadelphia Union picked up their first home win of the season, 2-0 over Minnesota United, who came into the match day on Saturday leading the West. Union gets all 3 points, and it just looked like vintage Philadelphia Union, Will, with that front 3 that has been so consistent over the last few years of Daniel Gazdag, Julian Carranza, and Mikel Uwa. Gazdag and Carranza getting on the score sheet in that game. That trio has totaled 8 goals and 2 assists so far, only in MLS play. So
it's crazy.
That group right now, where does Philadelphia Union kind of stand for you as they kind of came out of the woods away from their congested CONCACAF Champions Cup slate, much like Nashville? 6-0 was their defeat at the hands of Pachuca in the second leg. So they got ran off the field in that second leg, had to kind of readjust. But similar challenges for both of these clubs at the early onset of the season.
Sure. I mean, it is a 4-4-2 system under Jim Curtin. It is high pressure, every single pass, every single motion that you have. I feel like a broken record because we talked about that with Red Bulls. We talked about that with Columbus. Philadelphia wants to suffocate you in possession, but that front 3 does not need much in order to score. Gazdag and Carranza, you mentioned, scoring the goals in their win over Minnesota, who has been outstanding to start the season as well on Saturday. That's the 14th time the pair of them have scored in the same regular season match since the beginning of 2022, something no pair of non-Union teammates has done more than 6 times in that span. Those 2 guys have scored in the same game 14 times in the last 2+ seasons. Nobody else on the same team has done that in 6 games. That's amazing. Carranza's got 31 goals since 2021. Gazdag now has 43. They're the only teammates with 30-plus goals since the 2021 season began. They are so clinical. You give them an inch, they will take a mile. And that is where Nashville has got to be careful. Those mental lapses that we have seen, particularly in the last 15 minutes, they will pounce on any mistake and they will make you pay.
Games are always heated between these two, always competitive. Nashville looking for its first win over Philadelphia Union since April 2021. It'll be almost 3 years to the day since Nashville last defeated Philadelphia Union last season, a 2-0 loss at home, and then a scoreless draw at Subaru Park. So what's the key here? Because it's not just about the front three, right? That 4-4-2 in the midfield diamond that we know so well under Jim Curtin, who's one of the best managers in Major League Soccer. Extremely organized back line. Jacob Glesnes, former MLS Defender of the Year. Jack Elliott on the MLS Team of the Match Day had a great performance against Minnesota. And one of the best goalkeepers in Major League Soccer, and Andre Blake. That could be an injury question for Saturday as he left the game injured against Minnesota last weekend.
No mistakes in your defensive half. Whether you have the ball or whether Philadelphia has the ball and is attacking your net, Nashville has to be practical, they have to be safe, and they have to be smart on their defensive end of the pitch. Philadelphia is going to press high. They're going to press every single pass that you are trying to make in your defensive half. And that is where Nashville's midfield and back line, you just can't have some of the giveaways that we have seen against LAFC and against Columbus Crew in these last couple of games, because LAFC put 5 past you a couple of weeks ago. Philadelphia Union has the capability to make you pay for every mistake that you make in a similar way. The good news for Nashville, they're unbeaten in 6 straight home matches in all competitions to begin the season, with a couple of wins this year. Nashville has got to protect the castle. I think if you had looked at this 2-game span going into the bye week next week and said, if you get 4 points against Columbus and Philadelphia, that is a great 2 weeks to take into the bye, get healthy, and have a run at Miami out of that. Nashville should be going for all 3 points. If they don't make as many mistakes in their defensive half, they'll have a great chance to get it.
By the way, entering stoppage time currently in Miami in CONCACAF Champions Cup first leg of the quarterfinal as Monterrey capitalizing on a mistake defensively by Miami. A gorgeous goal in the 89th minute to go up 2-1, get a critical second away goal for the Mexican Giants. 5 minutes of stoppage time as they look to kill it off here with a counter. So
it's a shame.
You'll be getting an exhausted Miami side,
yeah,
right?
You will.
No matter what happens, because
100%.
they still got to go to Mexico and play a second leg against Monterrey before Miami hosts Nashville in a couple of weeks. So pretty important Saturday night in Geodis Park coming up for the boys in gold to be confident in doing so when they head down to South Beach with a little bit of a break in between. Again, we'll be on the call. 7:30 is the kickoff. 7 p.m. is the pregame on the 104.5 The Zone app by selecting the Nashville FC live stream. You can also watch on Apple TV. For Will Bowling and our producer, Jackson Williams, I'm Lucas Panzica. This has been NSC Backstage, and we will talk to you on Saturday on 104.5 The Zone.